On today's show, we have special guest Dave Loughran again there with us. You might know Dave as the guy that just won $20,000. And the other guy is a guy that you also might know as the man who is, as we said in the email today, one of us now. You are one of us, Cardi.
He's a DFSer.
You are a official DFSer. Guys, how goes it today?
It goes well.
Pretty happy to be officially part of the whole thing now. So I'm doing good today.
We considered not letting you in, to be honest.
It was.
You know what? I
wouldn't
have blamed you. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm
we
pretty
are.
much
We are
amazing and gorgeous. Like there's definitely some jealousy going on. I'm sure where you guys were like conflicted. Like, can we let this guy in? Is he going to make us look bad?
It must be the hair, right?
It is definitely the hair.
The hair's a big part of it.
If it's coming from me, you know it's the hair.
I would agree, dude. Hanson brothers are jealous. Love you, buddy. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I know.
So we had a pretty good slate yesterday. DeGrom and Cashner for all the monies. So good call there, guys. Tonight, what's your gut telling you, kind of?
Tonight is just going to be all over the place. Yeah.
All right.
Things
so
shifted a lot. Even go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just start it off quickly. When you look at the highly projected pitchers tonight, I know Derek and I had spoken earlier, and while Kluber was an excellent play before a lineup came out, there were other options, and it would have made it simple to fade him where he's really high priced like DraftKings. But now you have him projected to put up a massive amount of points against the terrible Houston lineup. But the issue here is you have Ian Kennedy at home against Philly. He's a great second pitcher option. But then Cueto against a Rizzo-less Chicago Cubs team, even Cologne and Arrieta against Cincinnati. There are a lot of options. I'll let Derek dig a little deeper into it. But pitching is going to be tough tonight. And the biggest thing here is if Coors Field doesn't produce as many expected to, and I think we could see a little bit less production in Coors than usual. If it doesn't produce and you have people who did pair up two higher-end pitchers that hit, it's going to be a pretty massive swing.
Yeah, because like Laffy's saying, if you go with like two higher-end pitchers, Kluber and Cueto or Kluber and Kennedy or, whoever really, there's so many options today, you're probably not going to be able to get a lot of the expensive Coors bats. You're going to have guys from other teams. And if Coors isn't big tonight, then those are the guys that are going to be winning tournaments.
I love it when you say tournaments. How do you...
GPPs.
No, say it. How do you say it,
You're a DFSer now, buddy.
Yeah.
Dave, how do you say it?
I call them tourneys. I call them GPPs. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
But we've been grinding a little longer. We got to give them some slack, right?
I'm just talking about. I'm not talking about like tournaments versus GPPs. I'm talking about.
How do I say tournament?
Yeah.
Like
I don't
the word
say
itself.
Oh, I don't say tournament.
I say tournament.
Right. TURN.
Right.
Right. You just screw the O.
So you pronounce it incorrectly, and you're cool with it.
Screw the O, right? Tournament.
I clearly am not going to win this because you both are some Yankees and you don't appreciate the true Southern dialect that I have.
I do a podcast with Ben every Tuesday. You don't think I've begun to adjust? His accent may be stronger than yours is.
I don't feel like I have an accent.
You have an accent, but Ben's is outrageous. I talked to him on the phone because when we do the pod, we have the video up too because it makes things easier. But talking to him without video, oh man, that was a treat. I'll tell you that much.
Does he say?
I don't talk to many Southerners.
And Ben's slang is so great too. He's got the whole Southern slag going. Like the daggum pitcher today just did whatever.
I use daggone all the time, just not in public.
The one thing I will say that I say is fixing to and I hate it about myself.
Fixing.
I'm fixing to go to the store. Like it's I say it all the time and I hate it.
Yeah, I just say I'm going to go to the store.
Yeah,
but that's where we differ. I can appreciate it. I respect it.
Touche. So, anyways, Lofty, I'll kind of let you take it from here.
All right. Well, my whole mouth is numb from this Oragel, so bear with me. I got Davis-Maddox syndrome, except I just don't go to the dentist. But anyway, Derek, we already started to talk about pitchers. At this point with the lineup that we're working with in Houston, how difficult is it going to be to fade Kluber? And before you start, let me just mention that with Anthony Rizzo not being in the lineup, that Chicago Cubs team that is pretty brutal. You look at Valakia, Watkins, Scherzer, SC, CZ.
Caesar, you pronounce it, but you wouldn't think so based on
No, there's one. There's one vowel in that and two Z's. Okay. But consider the lineups. That lineup with Baez striking out at will. I know Cueto's an option, but is it going to be difficult to overlook Kluber in the first place?
It is. I wrote up the pitchers today, and I basically said Kluber's the top option, but he's not good enough where you're going to pay up for him. And I think I've shifted my stance based on this lineup because it's so bad. I mean, you have Marwin Gonzalez batting in the middle of the order. Like, that's how bad this lineup is. So, as much as it's going to pain me, I don't think you can fade Kluber, especially on FanDuel. Like, as your number one, you can't do it. He's got to be in there. And in DraftKings, even though it's going to be hard saving any kind of money for offense, Kluber, I think, has to be your number one at this point on DraftKings. He's just, in your cash games at least, he profiles so well now.
Okay, so I'm on a little bit of a different page. I think Kluber is a phenomenal play, but I'm not sure he's a must-play still, although it's going to be difficult to fade him. I think Johnny Cueto really does have a phenomenal matchup, especially with the strikeout upside. And I know Houston has that same susceptibility to strikeouts, but it's going to be tough deciding between both of them, and I'm not sure salary won't make a difference. Second pitcher, there are so many options, starting with Ian Kennedy up against the Phillies team that Castner had a complete game shutout against yesterday, and not one Phillies hitter got to second base all night. He allowed 2 hits and sailed through that game. I think he threw somewhere around 90 pitches. So you have to take Kennedy in as an option, as he's cheap enough. Jake Odorizzi and Jake Arrieta as well. And I know you also mentioned guys like Pineda and Morton. Where are we looking as our second pitcher?
Not Pineda. Colon and Morton were the other guys I mentioned.
Colon and Morton.
My second guy overall is going to be Kennedy. His projection is going to come down a little bit once the umpire is officially announced, because he's not a favorable guy. But if you can do Kennedy and Kluber, I got to see what kind of offense you can fit in with those two. But if you can make it work, that's what I want on DraftKings. If I can't, then I'm going to be dropping down probably to Kluber and Colon, or maybe even to Kluber and Morton. Morton really would be the guy if you're going to drop down. He's the guy to do it to, because you get him at such a discount. He's only $6K on DraftKings, and he's not that bad of a pitcher. He's league average-ish. He's playing at home in PNC Park against kind of a watered-down Boston offense because they're coming over to the NL. They don't have a DH. Poppy is sitting out. Daniel Nava is hitting third. So Morton has a pretty good matchup for the price. So if you're going Kluber, it's going to be tempting to pair him up with Morton because he's such a good value play.
You're not concerned that Charlie Morton might be limited or on a pitch count in his first start back from he hasn't pitched in more than 30 days at the major league level.
That is a concern. Actually, I've been meaning to look up what he was pitch counting at in the minors. I will need to look into that because that will definitely play into it. If he's going to be limited to 80 pitches or whatever, then maybe
his upside doesn't make it worth it. Yeah, he's going to need the innings. And it's also worth noting, I understand it was a while ago and an injury may have had something to do with it, but he allowed 4 or more runs in 4 of 5 starts leading up to the injury. So it's something to keep an eye on. He is someone that can, with a considerable amount of blow-up potential. Talk about Colon quickly, though. I see someone that's actually in consideration today at only $700 cheaper than Kennedy, and that's what I don't like too much.
That's the main thing. He's more expensive than you want him to be, but he still has to be in consideration, especially as a GPP alternative to Kennedy, because the matchup is so good. He is up against the Miami team that is without Giancarlo Stanton, and it's just a really, really bad offense. Even though Colon doesn't strike a lot of guys out to begin with, this Miami offense strikes out a lot. He has an umpire who's one of the best in baseball at strikeouts, basically helping pitchers get strikeouts in Trip Gibson. So Cologne is going to be striking out, close to a batter per inning today, just based on matchup.
Okay.
And then the other thing, we were talking before the show a little bit about Cologne, and you mentioned that he maybe doesn't have the same upside as other pitchers do. So as a GPP guy, maybe you don't want him because he doesn't have that upside. But I'm not convinced that that's true, because he's going to probably be one of the best pitchers today in terms of preventing runs. So if there's a guy who can go a complete game shutout, Cologne is going to be one of the best options for that. So there is upside in that regard.
You're a lot more optimistic about Cologne's production than I am, but I can understand it. I can certainly understand it. I'm just not sure that I can pull the trigger when there are so many options out there. Now, Kyle wants to talk about Kashmir. Is he worth it to you? I understand that they're heavily favored, but does it not seem that Oakland's heavily favored every single time they take the field? It does. At 240, minus 250 every time they take the field. Now, Kashmir started the season scorching hot. He's turned things around a little bit lately, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would touch him. He's not expensive, and he's looked decent over his last 2 starts. But is he worth it to you as a second pitcher?
He's not. I wrote him up as my long shot today, but he's not a guy that I'm really on, because even though he dominated in what was a really bad matchup last time out in U.S. Cellular against a righty-heavy Chicago team. But he's been off since the beginning of August, and if you look at what he's working with, it's easy to see why. He has command issues that he's kind of dealt with in the past. They're resurfacing. His velocity is down a little bit. His breaking balls aren't getting the same bite and the same depth. So he's a different pitcher than what we saw earlier in the year. So it's really hard to trust a guy like that, especially when the numbers are bearing out, what the stuff and the scouting tells us. So it's going to be tough to roster Kashmir today. I can see it as like an upside GPP play because he is so cheap, but I think with so many other options today, there's just other places I'd be looking.
Sure. Talking about stacks, we obviously find our way over naturally to Coors Field. Tyler Matzik has been pitching very strong of late. He's a lefty. There's a lot of right-handed talent, a lot of right-handed power in Los Angeles, so clearly you're going to want to target them. Now, you and I had a conversation. You like D. Gordon on DraftKings, and I understand he's cheap on FanDuel, so this is site-specific. At 4,800 on DraftKings. I personally am not a huge fan of him. I think Neil Walker is somebody that I would rather take. Tell me why you like D. Gordon in this game before we get into stacks.
Yeah, I know you dislike Gordon, and I
don't dislike him. I dislike his salary considering the circumstances.
I still think, even though I think a lot of people are going to be off Gordon today, and I think D. Gordon is the kind of guy, because a lot of guys are going to have this line of thinking, he's going to potentially win people some money tonight, because he is in this lefty-lefty matchup, which is bad both because he's not going to have the platoon at the plate, and once he gets on base, it's going to be a little bit harder to steal against a lefty. But the thing that I like about Gordon is Coors Field is perfect for him because it decreases strikeouts, it helps with base hits and extra base hits. So if he puts the ball in play, the park is perfect for him. Even more so than it is for just like a power hitter, the way most people think Coors plays. The other thing is that most people only take starting pitcher into consideration, and that's not what we should be doing. D. Gordon, once this game gets into the bullpen, which it's probably going to get into early because the Dodgers are the highest projected scoring team of the day, D. Gordon is going to have the platoon against a whole bunch of bad relievers. He's going to get 5 or 6 at-bats in this game, maybe 2 of them against Matzik. And even at that, Matzik isn't a good pitcher. So Gordon is leading off for the highest projected scoring team of the day. He's going to get a ton of at-bats. He's going to get a ton of at-bats against a bad bullpen. And he's a good player to begin with in an amazing park. So I don't see any reason to fade D today.
Okay. You think he is the only option at second or short?
I don't think he's the only option, but Neil Walker's 400 less on DraftKings
against the pitcher that has just been brutal, especially against lefties.
I agree. Neil Walker is probably going to be the second best play at second base today, either him or Kipnis. But I think D is far enough ahead of both of them where even for a few $100s more, he's the guy that I want.
All right. Talking about Los Angeles, let's get it out of the way. Who are your must-play LA Dodger bats today?
It's hard because it depends a little bit on what you're doing with pitching. Um, Obviously, they're all top plays. Kemp, Hanley, Gordon, even Puig. I mean, Puig is coming out of his slump. He had a good game yesterday. Van Slyke is an awesome play today. He's probably a must-play for his price. So, yeah, those are, I guess, the guys that I'd be looking at. Basically, the entire front 5 or 6 of the order.
It's funny. D. Gordon actually has a higher weighted on-base average against lefties this year than he does against righties. Granted, it's like 1/4 of the at-bats, so it's negligible, but I was expecting to see something a lot worse. Talking about Colorado, the usual suspects, Dickerson, Blackmon. Blackman's been rough lately, but his ability to steal bases has made up for a lot of poor starts. And that 5 points on DraftKings, even the 2 on FanDuel, really makes up for his inability to get hits. Problem is he has to get on base. So Blackmon, Dickerson. What about Culberson at minimum salary? Where are you looking in Colorado?
In Colorado, I don't think Colorado is as strong a play as Dodgers bats are, just because Herron is such a better pitcher than Matzik is. Not to say Colorado bats aren't in play; they're definitely going to be. The top guy, salary insensitive, is going to be Dickerson. I wish they were batting him a little higher in the order, but he's definitely a good guy, and he's only a couple hundred more than Blackmon, who's also a good play. Either of them, I think, are going to be really good. Morneau is going to be really good. He's probably the top first-base option of the day. Culberson is a good punt. I guess is Rosario in there today? No, he's not.
No, McHenry is.
McHenry I can see as a decent, cheap catcher option. Even Rutledge batting second, I don't hate. He's pretty reasonably priced.
So anybody, even though you don't like him?
Basically anybody. Maybe not Stubbs. I think he's a little too expensive for what the matchup warrants. But, yeah, pretty much anyone in this lineup.
I have a bad feeling about this game. It's in my bones, Derek. It's in my bones, man. It doesn't mean I won't be exploiting
I'm definitely
this.
going to be heavier on the Dodgers than the Rockies because I do think Herron's a pretty good pitcher. And maybe it's not going to be as high scoring as some people might think just seeing cores. But I do think it's going to be a high scoring game, easily the highest of the day.
If you're not targeting that game, where are you looking? Pittsburgh?
If you're not targeting that game, wow.
Well, I'm saying if you're not targeting it entirely like you are, some people like variety.
I'm definitely not targeting it entirely, especially if you go with like a Kluber-Kennedy mix.
Going with the DraftKings minimum other team players does not count as not entirely.
Yeah, so you're going to have to go with some other guys that look good. In Pittsburgh, I think Travis Snyder profiles really well. He's batting second against Renato with the platoon. Do we have a Giants lineup yet? We do not, but they're going to be against Cole Mentor in Chase Field, so I think if Brandon Belt is in there today, he could be a good play. I think really, aside from once I fill in my cores guys, it's kind of going to be picking piecemeal, just guys with individually good matchups to fill out, the rest of my roster.
Is Brandon Moss an auto exclude?
Always.
Even though he's batting 5th against Nick Tepesh?
Yes, he is. It's an auto exclude. It's an O.co. He's hit 1 home run in the past 2 months. You can't play Moss. So
is there anyone in this Oakland club that you would be targeting against a very below average pitcher?
Tepesh is one of those guys where I don't think he's as bad as most people think he is. He's bad. He's below average. He's not awful. So maybe Sam. I don't know. He's not awful. He's not.
He's not.
And it's a really bad park, so it's probably not a matchup I'm going to try to exploit. Maybe Sam Fold, but I think he's kind of expensive. He's 33 or something, so I'm really not looking at anyone from that game.
And truth be told, most of your outfield exposure will probably be at Coors Field, with having options like Puig, Dickerson, Blackmon, Kemp, Van Slyke. It's going to be difficult to squeeze someone in that isn't from that game, right?
Exactly, yeah. And I think if I am squeezing a non-Coors outfielder in, I think it might be Snyder. because I like his matchup the best.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a
yeah,
big fan of Snyder, especially where he's hitting. I'm telling you, I think people are sleeping on Neil Walker, though.
I agree. Neil Walker's a great play. I just can't fade D for him.
Right. Okay. At the catcher position, you have on multi-position eligibility sites, Carlos Santana projects really high today. Really high, actually. He is, I think, on your projection system right now, I believe he's 8th overall. And that went from 15 to 12 to 10, and now he's sitting at 8th against Nick Tropiano. He's a definite consideration tonight. It's going to be difficult to get him in your lineup, but he's somebody to consider against Tropiano.
Yeah, he's so expensive. It's going to be really hard to fit him in, but he's a great play today. He's getting a huge park boost going to Minute Maid. Tropiano's not a particularly good pitcher. He's not awful, but he's not good. So I think some of my non-Coors exposure might come from the Cleveland side of things, like maybe a Jose Ramirez who's batting second, a middle infield punt with him or something like that.
Kemp or Puig?
Kemp, just because they rank so closely together. Kemp is actually a little ahead today, it looks like, in the projections. And Puig, just he's had his issues. He might be tiring. He's been cold for most of the second half, even though he's kind of coming out of it. I don't see any reason to risk Puig when Kemp is... Oh, Kemp's more expensive today. Yesterday they were the same price.
Yeah, he jumped to 47, I think.
Yeah, he's $200 more, which makes it a little bit more difficult of a decision. But I still, everything being equal, I take Kemp before Puig.
Okay. The catcher position is kind of rough. Outside of Santana, and he's not eligible at catcher. I hate that he's eligible at first base on FanDuel. I would really like third base, but I don't play there much anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he's not third base on DraftKings anymore, which made me sad. He's catcher and first now.
I know. And I guess that's just the way the world works. It's unfortunate, but it was nice to slot him in at third base because a lot of times there's those options you don't want to fade at first. Anyway, at catcher, you have Mike McHenry and who else?
You have McHenry, but he's 4,200. Like
he's way too expensive.
That is ridiculously priced. I think AJ Ellis is probably going to be the catcher today because he's really cheap. He's 2,500, and there just aren't a whole lot of better options. At least better options that you can fit in if you go heavy on pitching.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Miguel Montero. He's an auto exclude right now, and Peavy's pitching well.
Yeah, Montero is going to come up in the optimals, but he's a guy.
He already did.
Yep. He's a guy I'm going to exclude because Peavy is pretty good, and Montero's just been so cold. Guys like that, there's something wrong with them, and you can't trust them.
Who are some auto excludes? Who are some auto excludes before we move from catcher? Who are some auto excludes that you would not touch tonight, regardless of salary or matchup?
I haven't actually run into too many yet, but Montero was the first one. Potentially Trumbo. I don't know if he's going to come up. A lot of the Yankees are always auto excludes for me. Beltran, Teixeira, McCann. Brandon Moss is always an auto exclude. Jason Kipnis, I'm tempted to exclude. Not that he's going to be on my radar because of Gordon, but if you fade Gordon, he might be. But he's kind of playing through an injury. He's got the cold flag. As good as the matchup is, he's a guy that would worry me a little bit. Yeah, so those are the guys that I'd be looking at excluding.
Cannon says it's Moss's birthday. Does that intangible right there change your mind? Double dong night?
Nope. 4 strikeout night.
4 strikeout birthday
He's gonna
boy.
Cry himself to sleep on his birthday.
I don't know, man. I feel good about Moss tonight. By feel good, I mean I wouldn't touch him, but I think that he could definitely piece together a nice performance. He's been really bad though, and it's kind of difficult to understand where it's coming from too.
He's been bad enough where you simply can't play him. Where a guy like Montero, he's not quite at that point, especially on FanDuel. I think K. Cannon mentioned in chat that he's minimum price on FanDuel, so it's hard to pass him up at that price when he hasn't been like horrendous like Moss has. But Moss has just been so bad that I don't think there's any way you can play him.
So birthdays and bobbleheads do not influence your decision?
They do not. Not until someone gives me a database and I can study it.
Wait until basketball season comes around, man. You might change your tone a bit. Might change your tone a bit. I'm telling you. Birthday boys and basketball, they go hand in hand. It works well together. It's a beautiful, beautiful combination. First base. You have Carlos Santana there now. You have Dave not at his seat. And you have who else? Adrian Gonzalez has the lefty-lefty matchup.
Yeah. Adam Dunn might actually be in play here. Because he's batting cleanup. It's hard knowing exactly how many runs to expect of this Oakland team just because they are kind of banged up. You have Moss, being Moss. But I think Dunn is a decent option. If you can fit him in, Morneau is going to be a great play. Even Agon is a decent play, just not for the price.
And Morneau's been
keep going.
pedestrian lately. So at 4,600, I have trouble playing him against. And I understand Herron gives up the long ball, and Herron's not a great pitcher, but Herron's also not Roberto Hernandez either.
No, there's a guy that Nappy keeps giving me. I need to look into him because I haven't heard of him before. But Andy Wilkins is 2K on DraftKings, and he's batting 6th tonight for the White Sox against Liam Hendricks. So as a punt, like if you go Kluber-Kennedy, I mean, just a guy with a matchup like that for that price is always going to have to be in consideration.
And you said he's how much minimum
2K.
salary?
Almost minimum. He's 2K.
Okay, and he's got the lefty. He's got the advantage. He's batting sixth, too.
He's got the platoon. He's batting 6th. It's a really bad pitcher. So
do you know anything about him or at all?
I know nothing about him.
Okay. You know his name now. That's about it.
That is exactly it.
All right, moving over to second base. We've talked about Gordon. We've talked about Walker. And the third guy you mentioned was Kipnis. Is it basically concentrated with those three guys and it doesn't go much further?
It's pretty much those guys. I mean, I'm not fading D. If I am, I can see Walker. I think Walker's a great play. I'm trying to find Jose Ramirez. He qualifies, I think, at second and short. What does he cost, though? Jose. Do you have a salary on him?
On who? Jose Ramirez?
Yeah.
What's your computer freezing up on you? Jose Ramirez is 3,400.
34, yeah. It's a little more expensive than you want for him.
Yeah, somebody just asked about Ian Kinsler.
Kinsler. Who's he got tonight?
Kinsler has Nolasco. Kinsler's leading off against Nolasco.
Oh, yeah, there he is. Okay. No, definitely not. He doesn't have the platoon. It's not a good park. Nolasco is not an awful pitcher. He's too expensive. There's better options than Kinsler tonight.
All right. Well, third base, some obvious options, but who are you targeting specifically at third base? Who's going to be in your lineup at the position?
Third base is tough right now. I'm kind of like trying to figure it out. Wilkins is a guy right now that looks like he's first base and third base eligible, so he might get plugged in at third because third is so ugly tonight. Walker is going to be in consideration if you have the money there. He qualifies at third on DraftKings.
He sure does, buddy.
So he would actually be the top third base play if you can fit him in. After that, maybe like Panda or, I don't know, maybe Matt Carpenter. Third base is just gross. I think it's going to be a position I punt, and it might be with this Wilkins guy.
I actually don't have an issue punting Wilkins because of how cheap he is and how weak the position is. It usually depends on the scarcity at the position, and that's there tonight.
Crap. Dude,
read him off, buddy.
He hit 30 home runs at AAA this year.
Did he really?
And he hit 293 with a 17% strikeout rate. So I need to see if I can find any kind of like scouting info on this guy, but it doesn't look like he's just like a crappy organizational guy who's going to come up and bat 220 and you just hope to get a hit from him.
Is this his first year at AAA?
He played a half season there last year.
A half season?
Yeah, he's 26.
Wow. 30 home runs for $2,000 against a bad pitcher isn't terrible. Now, he's not going to have the park advantage at Kauffman, Does
No,
that
he's
concern
not.
you at all, or is it not? Is it not much of a worry considering how dirt cheap he is?
For the price, I mean, if it was in U.S. Cellular, it would be great, but for the price, you can't quibble with that sort of thing. You kind of just got to take it for what it is, and it's a good matchup, even if it's not a great one. So a good matchup with a guy who hit well at AAA for 2K. I think he's a guy that I'm gonna have to play tonight, especially if I go like Kluber Kennedy.
All right, sorry, my computer almost died, and then I tripped over the cord and almost fell on my face. But I'm back, and we're good to go. Let me give you another guy that's popping up in optimals, and you can give me your take on him. Brandon Belt is shooting up in optimals against Cole Mentor tonight. Do you have any opinion on him?
Yeah, I saw he was popping up before, and I think I mentioned his name earlier in passing. It's a good matchup. I mean, he's going to have the platoon. He's probably going to bat in the middle of the order, assuming he does play tonight. He is coming back from the DL, so it's possible they could give him a break like the Cubs did to Rizzo.
Yeah.
But I mean, the matchup itself is good, and he's reasonably-ish priced. So as long as you don't think there's going to be any lingering concerns, which sometimes there can be with concussions, but he's not a guy I would dislike taking a chance on. I think he's in a pretty good spot.
What about Panda? He obviously has that hip injury. If he plays, would you consider him, or is it just not worth the risk, even though third base is a weak position?
It's tough because it is a pretty good matchup, but anytime a guy is playing through an injury, it's really hard to know what to expect of them, especially hip injuries. I mean, you need your hips when you're swinging. You need your bottom half. You need your core to really get power behind a swing and get your torque going. So he's a guy I'd be tempted on, but probably would pass on because I think there are comparable options if I'm going to spend that much on a third baseman.
All right. Shortstop. You already mentioned Jose Ramirez, who is second base and shortstop at the position on DraftKings and Draft Day, and then you have D. Gordon as well. Are you using Gordon at second base or shortstop?
Right now I have him in there at second base with Hanley at shortstop. But I could see it changing depending on what pitchers I end up with, what punts I want. But right now I'm going chalk with Gordon Hanley.
Okay, so shortstop, there's clearly Hanley Ramirez, and there's who else? Because I think there's going to be a lot of ownership on Hanley, even though I'm not too high on him tonight, to be completely honest with you. I like him, but there's a lot of downside there too. Even considering the park and against a lefty, I'm a little bit concerned that Hanley might not produce, especially considering his salary has skyrocketed on a number of sites.
Yeah, I think the other guys you could be looking at, the Minnesota guys, they're too expensive really probably for what we're going to be trying to do tonight, but Dozier and Danny Santana are both in play. They both have really good matchups against Porcello. The guy you played last night in one of your lineups, Alcides Escobar, it looks like he's batting leadoff again tonight against a weak pitcher, so he's going to be back in play. Rutledge is going to be in play from the Colorado game. Alexi Ramirez is batting second against Hendricks. He's going to be in play. But really, I think you go D, you probably go Hanley, or you kind of semi-punt it with like Rutledge, or I want to say Jose Ramirez, but he's not good enough for what he costs, I don't think.
You wouldn't believe who just popped up in an optimal. All right, I'll give you a hint. Old.
Not Derek Jeter.
Older.
Older? Who's older?
I don't know if he's older.
At
Jason
middle infield?
Giambi.
Oh, is he in the lineup tonight?
He is in the lineup batting 8th against Nick Tropiano at 2,200, and he is in the optimal right now. I'm not sure about you, but at 2,200 even, I'm not sure I could. Did Cannon guess that before? Did he guess that before I said it? I'm looking at it now with the Giambi call. But I tell you, man, 2,200. He is possibly going to strike out 5 times in 3 at-bats.
It's going to be hard to play him. I mean, he's barely played at all this year. He's coming off the DL with a knee injury.
I'm looking at his picture. All of his facial hair is gray. All his hair is entirely gray. He's batting 145 across 55 at bats.
You know what? As a GPP guy, go for it. As a cash game play, I have a hard time with it.
I have a hard time no matter what. He could be free, and I'm not sure I could recommend playing Jason Giambi, especially batting eighth. You know, a guy like him batting eighth just doesn't seem to make much sense.
No, it doesn't.
It's like they're in Colorado taking cues from what they got going on over there, throwing Dickerson fifth every night.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at this guy right now. Giambi, oh my God.
You don't remember him, huh? You're too young?
No, no, I remember him. I'm trying to see where he actually ranks, if he's like high or if it's just like a price play. Yeah, he's not on like the top of the list at all. He's down there, so it's got to just be a price thing. Again, as a punt in a GPP, go for it. Yeah, he's like the 25th ranked first baseman today.
Talking about punts, though, outfield always takes a while, so we'll get to that last. But talking about punts, you have several options tonight for punts. You have Culberson, you have Giambi, you have, I believe, is Snyder cheap enough, or is he going to cost you a little bit?
No, he's 27, so he's pretty cheap.
That's definitely cheap. I was really hoping Paulson would have been in the lineup. That would have been a real nice play for 2,800. Where else can we look towards for punts? Because I think it's kind of it's necessary to speak on punts for a little while here, considering the amount of salary we're going to have left over in the event that you do go with Kluber and Kennedy, or Cueto and Kennedy, or even Kluber and Cologne, who's 8,200. Where are we looking outside of the aforementioned players in terms of punt plays?
I put in just to see what would happen, a Kluber Cueto optimal, just to see what kind of punts show up. And
it gave you Giambi 8 times?
Yep. But yeah, I think we've covered a lot of the punts, really. Snyder's a good one. Ellis is a good one at catcher. This Andy Wilkins guy I'm liking more and more. Hector Sanchez, it's giving me as a catcher punt too. I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup or if he's even on the active roster. I feel like I haven't seen him in forever. But we don't have a Giants lineup yet. Van Slyke is like not a punt, but he's like a semi-punt sort of for 32.
Considering the conditions, he's a punt play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the punts that I would be looking at. I'm trying to find if there's anyone else that really looks cheap enough and in a good enough spot, but there's not a whole lot sticking out right now.
Are you opposed to fading Colorado Rocky bats tonight?
No, I'm not opposed to it. I would definitely be opposed to fading Dodgers, but fading Rockies, if that's how it works organically, I don't hate it, because I would rather pay the money that I'm going to pay for good hitters on Dodgers guys and then punt with, piecemeal with guys from other teams, if that's the way it works out.
Right. And quite frankly, there aren't enough consistent bats in Colorado right now. I love playing Colorado bats at Coors, don't get me wrong, but can you really trust Charlie Blackmon when he's overpriced, and Morneau, who's 47 or 4,600? It's tough, because if they were a little bit cheaper, you'd have them locked in.
You would. It's just you don't have the salary in all likelihood to fit those kind of guys in. I just ran for the heck of it Cologne Morton optimal, and it fits in like everybody. Carlos Santana's in there, Blackman's in there, the whole Dodgers team, Neil Walker. Neil Walker at third in that lineup. Neil Walker at third. Gordon's in there too at short or second or wherever, but that's actually a super tempting GPP lineup right there.
And what pitchers was that?
Cologne and Morton. So like it's saving money, but it's Kemp, Puig,
you're saving
Santana,
fake money.
Blackman, Belt, and Walker.
You're saving fake money and blowing real money. That's what you're doing with that lineup. Good luck. But in a GPP, I guess I just have trouble envisioning an immense amount of upside with the Morton Cologne combo. But crazier things have happened, like 8 straight strikeouts for DeGrom last night. That was something.
And then giving up a hit Jared
Oh,
Cozart.
God, it was brutal. I was driving down to the city to my buddy's house to watch the Eagles game, which was amazing, by the way. And to see the Cozart get a single off of him after striking out, I'm thinking he's going 9 straight, no doubt about it. And he didn't. And then to give up 3 runs and then still have the opportunity to get the win and then have the win taken away from him in the following inning was kind of rough. He still had more points than Strasburg on DraftKings, and he was cheaper, so I'm okay by it. And the Cashner pairing was straight money.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, like, everyone had Cashner, but you still made money if you went with him and DeGrom.
Yeah,
and Strasburg.
That's the thing, though. Own percent rate means nothing to me in instances like that, because when Cashner comes out and drops 41 fantasy points, if everyone owns him and you own him, you still got 41 fantasy points, and you have 9 other players to work with.
Yeah, and it's not like you can fade a guy like that, because if
that's
you
what I'm
fade
saying.
him, then you're automatically out of the money.
What percentage was he owned in the payoff pitch? I know you checked that stuff. Approximately.
I know in cash games he was like 70%. In the payoff pitch, I think maybe he was like 60.
That's still really high.
Yeah.
There were 4,200 entries in that yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Your ideal pitching combo today on DraftKings would be what?
Right now, I'm trying to find a pitch count for Morton, because a Kluber-Morton lineup is super tempting. But if I don't do that, it's probably going to be Kluber-Kennedy or Kennedy-Cologne.
Are you guys in the chat on board with a Morton pairing on DraftKings or any other multi-position eligibility site? Let me know, because I'm having trouble getting on board with that.
It's just tempting to free up that kind of money.
It is. It's very tempting. But, you know, the one thing is, when you don't pay for pitchers in scenarios where there are so many good pitchers, it's really easy to get torched. You know? Not saying...
Yeah, no, it is, for sure. There's so many options tonight. And I think the best bet, especially for cash games, really is just going to be to bite the bullet, pick 2 good pitchers, and just take what hitting you can. Get like a little mini Dodger stack, and then hope a couple of your punts do something.
Yeah, like Jason Giambi. So on to the outfield. You look at the projection system, and you have the usual faces up there whenever there's a game at Coors, Kemp and Puig. Alex Gordon's up there against Chris Bassett. Corey Dickerson, Mike Trout with the platoon advantage on Ronis Elias, who I won't be touching tonight. I can't stand that guy in daily fantasy formats. He kills me.
Trout or Elias?
Trout.
Okay.
Trout. And Elias isn't a bad pitcher. Andrew McCutcheon's up there against Ronaldo. Blackman, Van Slyke, Bautista. Where are you looking?
I think it's got to be the Dodgers guys. It's got to be
outside of that. It's not that easy. I can't give that.
I mean, that's really where you go, though. You're going to have probably at least 2 or 3 of those guys, whether it's Kemp and Van Slyke or the whole outfield. And if not, then it's because you don't have the money for it and you're punting. And I think the top punt is Travis Snyder.
Okay, Snyder, and there's Van Slyke, which are 2 underpriced guys with enough upside and a good enough matchup, batting at a decent spot in the lineup that you don't really see a reason to look elsewhere in terms of punt plays?
I really don't. I think Snyder's in a good enough spot. He kind of separates himself from whatever other punts there might be. I'd have to dig even deeper just to find whoever I think the second one would be.
Okay.
I'd say Deaza would be the second one, but DK has caught on, and he is higher priced now. Maybe Sam Fold, but I think he's like 33 or something, so it's not like he's a true punt. Snyder's even cheaper than him, so maybe Inciarte. I don't know how cheap he is anymore. I feel like I haven't played him in forever. He's 3,400, yeah, so it's hard. Like, Fold's up to 35, yeah. I mean, Snyder just separates himself both in terms of price and matchup, so I don't see looking anywhere else for an outfield punt.
Yeah, and guys like Brantley and Michael Bourne, who are going to be
good.
priced more than you're looking to pay, especially.
Yeah, like they're good plays, but if you're going to spend that money, you're going to do it on Dodgers.
And that's what makes Tuesdays so tough, because the amount of good plays kind of cripples you sometimes when you're trying to construct a lineup, which kind of that's what makes the optimizer, the Nappy optimizer on fantasy on our website so great, because it does the work for you and makes it so you don't have to go through the grueling process of which one not to play and which one to play. And it's worked out for us in the past, so there's no reason not to use it tonight. And I'll give you a lineup that popped up with Cueto and Kennedy. Kemp, Puig, Ramirez, Van Slyke, Brandon Belt, Kipnis, A.J. Ellis, and Andy Wilkins. And that's with Kennedy and Cueto.
That's Kennedy and Cueto. Wow.
Kennedy and Cueto.
I thought that $500 between Cueto and Kluber was just going to make it automatically you go Kluber, but that's a little bit nicer of a lineup. I guess that 500 kind of goes a long way.
And Cueto's looked really good recently too. You know, he's been strong. I understand it's only $500, but I personally think, you know what? No, the matchup isn't equal, but
no,
I do.
Kluber's the better play. I think
He is. But I
it does
do
let
think
you
the
get some
matchup
nice
for
guys in
Cueto
there.
is really nice. Oh man, it's a really tough decision to make, especially after you make the first one. You have to make the second decision as well, and it's going to be Kennedy or it's going to be Cologne, or in your case, it's going to be Morton. I'm having a very tough time deciding who I'm going to play. So on that note, let's move on to the guaranteed dongs. Derek, I know sometimes it takes you a while to gather your thoughts on this one, but do you have anybody in mind that you believe will be an automatic home run on Tuesday night?
Well, I don't know if there's ever any such thing as an automatic home run, but I think your top
Tonight
options
there is.
Is it Puig or Kemp?
No, I'm just saying you got to pick one.
If I'm picking one, it's going to be... hold on. I do need a sec usually. Because home runs are a different thing entirely than like just overall value. I think the top guy, though, for home runs, if I'm guaranteeing a dong, is going to be... I don't know. How about Corey Dickerson?
As a guaranteed dong?
Sure.
Okay, under the radar. And it can't be from the Coors game.
No, definitely
and it can't be Andy Wilkins.
Andy Wilkins is a really good under the radar one.
I know. That's why I'm going
Travis
with
Snyder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Under the radar, we'll go Travis Snyder.
I'm going to go a little bit riskier route on this one. I'm going to take some Neil Walker as my guarantee.
That's riskier than Snyder? I thought you were going to go like Giambi.
Well, no, Walker's my guaranteed.
Oh, okay. Like your
it should be Giambi. And I think I'll go with Andy Wilkins as my under the radar.
You told me I couldn't. All right.
I know, dude. I had him. He was in the hopper. I had to go with it.
All right.
You know, I haven't been on the show in quite some time consistently, but the afraid to fade is more relevant tonight than it has been in a very long time, especially with pitchers. Who are you afraid to fade tonight?
I'm afraid to fade everybody. Really though, I'm afraid to fade Kluber.
So am I.
His projection's so high at this point, and the lineup is so bad. It's tempting to fade him and save money, but I'm afraid to fade him. And then if I go him, then I'm also afraid to fade a more stable, higher price guy like Kennedy or Cologne and go with like Morton instead. So I'm afraid of everything tonight.
You're just straight feared up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid to fade Kluber too. I'm afraid that the pivot to Cueto, even though he has a really sweet matchup, could bite me. There's no wind really at all at Wrigley. I would prefer it to be blowing in, but I think it's coming in at like 4 miles per hour last time I checked. I'm just afraid to make the wrong decision in general at pitcher. And FanDuel makes things easier because half of the Dodgers are way underpriced. Hanley Ramirez is $3,400. Kemp he's $4,000, but Puig is $3,100, and D. Gordon is $33. So you don't even have to work to make a mini Dodger stack on that site. But DraftKings makes things a lot more difficult, and that's what I'm truly concerned about. So, Derek, before we wrap the show up, is there anything, any closing words, any closing warnings that you want to take care of before I hand this over to Dave?
Not really. I mean, just this morning, I was thinking tonight was going to be like a tough night to really have a shot at winning a GPP, because I thought it was kind of going to be a straightforward night where there was a lot of chalk plays and everyone was going to be kind of overlapped on a lot of the same guys. And at this point, it just does not look like that at all. It's going to be all over the place, like different pairings and combinations. So it's going to be a really interesting night.
And that's what makes you afraid to fade a certain pitcher, because yesterday you have Cashner, who was super high owned, same with DeGrom, and Strasburg had almost the same amount of points. But tonight, because there are so many options, if you go the wrong play, it could cripple you, because there are so many different options that could come up huge in really good matchups.
Yeah, there's going to be 4 or 5 guys probably who like dominate tonight, and then if you get the one who doesn't, you're in trouble.
Derek, Walker and Puig or D. Gordon and Dickerson? You already know where I went with this one. Kyle's of the assumption that you're going to go with the latter.
Yeah, the one with D, I'm going, and I'm sure you're going the one with Walker.
Better believe it, buddy. I think it's close, though. I do. I think it's really close.
I think it's closer than most people would think, but I don't think it's close enough where it's something that I would fret over. I think it's D, and it's, I think it's D.
Wow. Okay. All right, Dave. We took it 55 minutes with 2 people, so I hope you're impressed, and I hope you're satisfied.
You always leave me satisfied.
Breathless, right?
And impressed.
Satisfied.
So yeah, that will do it for the Daily Fantasy MLB Show, sponsored by FantasyElite, the app that you can get in the Apple Store. You also can go to FantasyElite.com/dashboard, and I saw our own Trevor. There was a little bit of a friendly fire because he took down Roto Hobo in the NFL bracket blast off. So that's still going on. We'll try to get some results from there tomorrow. We'll also start drafting tomorrow on the Player Show with Mr. Tuttle 05, Napster Man, and Gindy. So we'll definitely do some sort of draft. And speaking of Fantasy Elite, special shout out to a guy who's in here, one of the members, and a guy who's always an Elite, Magic Sports Guy. He won the qualifier for FanDuel last night, so he'll be going to Vegas.
That dude wins a lot of qualifiers. Kevin's a good player, man.
Yeah,
real good player.
This might
Congrats,
be
Kevin.
This might be like the first qualifier he's won for DraftKings or FanDuel, though. So first major event. I think he's won one for Star Street in the past.
He won, yeah, and he won a couple showcase for DraftKings. So it wasn't the big okay.
Still,
he wins a lot of stuff though.
Oh my gosh! Well,
I said ships, a lot of ships, championships.
Well, there you go. We almost made it. But
Dave, when's the last time, really? And I said ships. I just figured when it was coming out, people would misconstrue it, so I stopped. But yeah, congrats, Kevin.
So good stuff there. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already heard, sign up for an annual subscription or upgrade your subscription to an annual subscription and get the MLB projections for the rest of the year. So that doesn't suck right there. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Insiders TV, sponsored by FantasyElite. We're out.